but thank you. We are now live, Mr. Gray. How are you?
I'm very well, Brad. Thank you. It's great to be cracking into 2026. Hopefully, it will be the year of the fix. We're hoping anyway.
You've been reading to me kids' books, mate. Your sentences are now rhyming. Just
Yeah.
them out. I would say a big welcome. We have a couple of guests joining live on the call, so thank you. A reminder that the chat window's there. If you want to come off and ask a question of Warwick, you're welcome to do so too. And if just also a reminder that this recording and all of our previous Channel Guru live sessions and many more to come are now available on the Channel Guru platform, and we now have a complimentary SKU, so you can jump on, get a little bit of a taste of what we've built at Channel Guru and access all that content going forward. But Warwick, we've got a lot to cover today, mate.
We do.
Fabric brand partners together with Katrina Kerr. Tell us a little bit about your history firstly, because the three of us, Katrina included, are all ex-Microsoft employees.
Yeah, it's funny, really. Just for an intro story, I was peddling drugs out of the boot of my car in 1988, and my brother asked me if I would join him in his new venture, which was a software distribution business for desktop publishing. And I was kind of like, well, what do I know about software? And he said, look, mate, if you can sell, I was actually selling drugs to doctors officially.
And that was going to be my next question. I was like, do we need to edit this? It's good to hear. Prescription medication, we'll leave it at that. But yes, continue.
Totally. It's a good opener. And he kind of said, if you can sell drugs to doctors, you can certainly sell software to people that need it. And I'm like, well, what does that do really? I mean, I was just 30. He said, well, look, I can show you. I'll give you a script and you'll be fine. But firstly, I'm going to send you to a management psychologist to see if you actually are suited to sales. So I kind of went along, had the questions. They asked me about what movies I liked and things like that. And the report came back saying, yep, 97% suited to sales, and I was away. So 37 years ago, here we are. Obviously, Katrina and I have known each other for a long, long time. When my brother and I sold our distribution business, we both I ended up at Corral Corporation. She was a young 23-year-old product manager at Tech Pacific, and I had exited a distribution business. She was my boss at 23 and I was 33. So the two of us made up Corral Corporation, and then started to get a little bit toey with the market around the new WordPerfect office that they had. And the Microsoft country manager thought the easiest way to get rid of the competition was to hire us both. So Katrina and I both ended up at Microsoft and had 15 years of great times, as you know.
Awesome, mate. Well, thank you. And it's really appreciate you making the time to jump on today's call. And we've worked together in different capacities over the years. But I want to jump into a little bit of a state of the market. Now, obviously, you're based in New Zealand. You're working across ANZ. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in the tech partner space, the MSP space. Let's start with New Zealand first, because I think there might be a bit of a contrast at the moment across the two countries.
Yeah, it is interesting. I thought I'd open with a couple of quotes just to sort of align brand and marketing in a way that partners might make sense in a way. So, impact doesn't come from activity, it comes from alignment, and clarity is probably the most underestimated growth lever in tech marketing. And it's very crowded out there. The goal for partners really isn't more campaigns, it's sustained momentum. And marketing works best when strategy and execution are inseparable. And I guess most of my work is trying to get those to come to life. In New Zealand, we do definitely have a slightly stronger, I think, alignment between sales and marketing. And it is a real competitive advantage to those partners that understand that and live it. The bigger enterprise partners, Datacom, Spark, Telstra, have teams of people to do this. So we're really trying to scale down the way that works with the methodologies to something that a small MSP can leverage, if they're committed. In Australia, that's slightly different. Buyers reward relevance over there. You've got the geographical state differences, and obviously Western Australia and Northern Territories and Tasmania get a lot less than the other three. And obviously they're looking for relevance and clarity, not volume. So that's the sort of second thing. And in terms of the regional stuff, because although we are talking New Zealand, Australia, most of our time zone is the zone that we're kind of working in. And in APAC, regional sales success comes from consistency and not reinventing the pitch market by market, which traditionally is what vendors try to do. So, mostly the observations that, MDF spending doesn't fail because of budget, but it fails because of poor prioritization. And I think my observations across the whole region are that MSP owners are so busy running the businesses and working in it that they're not really focused on strategy, purpose, story, and how
Yeah.
they take that to market.
Yeah, it's a very consistent theme that we observe as well, and I think we'll get into your approach a little bit further down the track, but that's something that you guys do somewhat uniquely in bringing both that strategy and purpose together with
Yeah.
kind of that marketing execution. What about the New Zealand economy now? You're not an economist, I get that, but there is talk over here in Australia that the economy in New Zealand is a bit slower at the moment, or a bit more fragile, if you like, than the Australian economy. Are you making those observations?
No, we're not actually. It's quite the opposite. I think all the business confidence indicators predict that this will be the best year we've had for that since 2014. So I think hopefully the moons align in that regard, and it does tend to be that way. There is certainly an election on in New Zealand this year, and that always gets the, all guns blazing. And, we are seeing more confidence and more commitment to spending in this area. I mean, marketing is usually the last cab off the rank for our tech partners, unless they got it from a vendor.
So you're saying you normally see buoyancy in the commercial market, enterprise market, as you get closer to an election?
Yeah, usually because it sort of unlocks a lot of government spending and jobs and other promises that sort of come to fruition. So in terms of where they're at, it's no different to Australia, though. It's a very middle of centre approach for them all. So everybody's just hoping that the lowered interest rates and, will align. In terms of our work, we are definitely seeing partners willing to talk to us more than they have been in the past, because really, if a brand is not the priority a lot of the time.
And is that because you feel like you guys are becoming more established, or is it a turn in the market, or a bit of both? I mean, you guys have been Fabric brand partners in market now for 3 years, I think.
Just ended 2, so
Okay.
we're predicting our first profit this year. So I think we're pretty excited about that. It's been quite a hard road, really, just getting everything sorted in terms of cash flow and regular clients. But yeah, I mean, our tagline for Fabric is impact interwoven, and I mean, we set the company up purely to try and remove that obsession from vendors that they should just pump out more assets that partners could use, that are never localized, not relevant, don't speak in the tone of voice of the client. And in fact, impact interwoven is far more than just the vendors. It's the people, it's internal processes, it's sales responses, it's RFP documents, it's brand story. All of these things add up to, give a client a competitive advantage if they want to take those few steps that they need to get that to come to life, because those that are doing it well are very real and genuine and authentic and use the vendors to tell their story. Others just rely on the vendor's content and assets to try and tell a story that doesn't resonate, so it doesn't work.
If you're looking, obviously you and I ex-Microsoft people, but you've got a lot of vendors in this space, from security vendors to AWS and others, and thousands of, I call like second or third tier vendors selling to and through the MSP channel. And a lot of them do have marketing assets. You made a comment that a lot of them aren't used. Do you see anyone use those assets anywhere? Because they all have these marketing platforms, and I just never see that partners, whether they're valuable or not, just don't choose not to use them.
Yeah, well, the partners have choice, and I think the problem is that they choose vendors that compete with each other at times. Certainly with distributors, they do. And so anything that is not in their own voice, they won't use. So I'm not sure how the indicators from around the world are there that, US-based assets will work, but they still keep making them. So we find that there's great opportunity in this chaos and carnage that's created by all the spend, all the competing messaging that comes down from the different competing vendors. I mean, there's 5 Microsoft distributors in Australia alone. And, what are they doing but shifting share with their huge trip incentives and really not much else in adding value. So I think 26 is going to see a real shift. I guess, Microsoft's changed the rules for distribution revenue, and obviously for their CSP market and who's managing who. And, the agile partners that are holding their own zone in that fast-changing world beyond Microsoft, but all of the vendors do have their own clarity that comes through in their comms because we've thoughtfully done that for them and allowed the vendors in at the right time to do things that the partner wants. So we kind of always describe our work as, the partner plus Microsoft equals, so that what we're saying about that is something that's very unique to that partnership, and really only Fabric with our years of experience could make that happen.
So I might just share a little bit of detail in that because I think it is interesting for those listening to today's call that the new rules that Microsoft put in place for the indirect providers, their CSP distributors, is that each distributor in each region, so New Zealand is an independent region to Australia, independent country, needs to be at a minimum $30 million USD annualized revenue on CSP. Otherwise, they're going to lose their contract. And so you do see a lot of shifting partners. You do see a lot of very competitive pricing from the CSP disties at the moment, as some of them are trying to reach that threshold before the clock runs out. And so it has had quite a bit of disruption and unfortunately a lot of margin erosion for the indirect providers. On the flip side, and it's probably obvious on the outside, large vendors like Microsoft have really divested a lot of their internal teams that service the channel and sent that investment to the distributors. And so if you're a partner to listen to today's call, there's new solution designations out that are targeted to SMB partners, which enables you kind of the old gold and silver certifications, if you like, enables partners to get solution designations and accelerate some of those incentives that they have, and then also encourage you to speak to your distie as well. We actually have a Channel Guru live sessions the next 2 weeks are focused on some of those topics, so feel free to register and we'll do a deep dive through some of those programs. Let's talk about the MSP channel a little bit. Let's talk about MSPs. We use the term TSPs, or kind of flip between the two, as we try to drive a modern technology solution provider kind of message in market. What are some of the most common growth or operational challenges you're seeing today with some of the MSPs you're working with?
Yeah, they're not differentiated enough, Brad. There's 2,000 in New Zealand, I think 7 in Australia, mostly running a small business, servicing a few customers. Whenever we do get asked, what they do special, it's their people, their process, and their technology. And we're like, every partner says that. So, we really try and always lead, if we're engaged, that they've really got to have a good brand framework to work from, and that anchors pretty much everything they do, what makes them different. But if you think about how that comes to life in terms of their client interaction, sales is what you hear, marketing is what you see, but a brand is what you feel. And so we're really trying to always use that brand to create a much stronger connection with MSPs and their clients, because they're not always in and on site at their clients. And so they have to try and build a much better engagement model around a website that's a encouraging, welcoming shop window with changing content and comms that actually reflect trends and things that clients might be interested in as they work their way across that 7-year bell curve of technology adoption. So not everybody's an early adopter, and there's lots of laggards that have to be brought on some sort of journey or through some other method to do it. So brand frameworks are rare. We do create them and obviously help them really come to life, because it does set the direction for the company. It positions the tone and the voice for how every staff member in that company should speak about the company. It encourages that cross-functional strategic alignment of the entire business to the story. And then if it works, which is our last piece of our story, activates their channel. So, sales, marketing, finance, support, HR, and senior managers all should be aligned behind that brand story. And I always just take it back to my time at Microsoft. In the very beginning, the tagline for Microsoft was a computer on every desk. It was a great big huge hairy audacious goal back in the late 80s. Yet whenever I wasn't sure what my job was, I always kind of thought, well, that's my job. I've got to get a computer on every desk. And, it morphed into helping everyone on the planet achieve and do more. So that single line is what motivated me a lot of times when I was a bit confused about the sales targets and how else it's going to do well. But I thought, did I help someone achieve and do more today? And I always could. So that skill of Fabric is just the way that we have that marketing, brand marketing and sales alignment. And how does that come to life at every touch point that a client has with customers, with the resources, the tools, the collateral, the wording, the voice to help them grow in their own careers.
Yeah, the lack of differentiation is a very common thing we see. Respectfully to the awesome community that we both serve, the MSP community, I always pains me when I go to a website and says, we're a managed service provider. It's like, no one cares, speaking language that resonates to your customers. And I often share an example, Warwick, of a small partner that's recently joined our community. And I always check out their website before we have our initial call and have a bit of a chat. And I was thinking for a moment, hold on, have they joined the right community here? Because the website was that they were a supply chain specialist. And as you dove through the websites, you started to see actually, yeah, they're a technology partner, they're an MSP, but they focused on supply chain because they have several larger customers in that space. They attend industry related events, not IT related events. And so they have content that talks to that industry, and they're completely differentiated as a result. When you think about that level of lack of differentiation, if you like, does that extend up into the larger partners? We see it a lot in the small to mid-sized partner space. Does it extend? And I don't want to mention any names because I know you work with partners in that space, but do you think some of those larger partners are better at differentiating, or do they suffer from the same problem?
Well, we did a specific project actually for a large ANZ partner that everybody would know. And they'd come to us because they realized that when they went to Microsoft conferences, they really didn't have a way to speak to what the value was of their company and how it aligned to Microsoft's priorities. And invariably, when you partner up, you've kind of got to do that. And we did this really nice overlay for them of, what are the priorities that Microsoft have and how does your company actually align to those with certifications, with the product specific trainings, the various channels to market. And I think that really changed the conversation a lot for when they went into meetings with executives. At the lower level, it's really that difference between being able to articulate what the vendor wants into a language that makes sense for a busy doctor or a law firm or a services firm or a plumber, trying to figure out how to get the value from the technology. So from the tiniest little MSP to the biggest global brands, the brand story does anchor all of that in a way that then links to strategy. Unfortunately, whenever we get engaged, the first thing we ask to do in discovery is, can we see your business plan and your marketing plan? 95% of the time, it doesn't even exist. And if it does, it hasn't been updated for a couple of years. I mean, I'm sure you and James find that when you get into the work that you're doing with them in terms of consulting and guidance, you've got to have a baseline to grow from. So quite a lot of that initial work is, what is the problems we're trying to solve? Have they got a customer? Because really in marketing, people will tell you all kinds of things, but the most powerful is the customer advocacy statements that we use to build from. So why does that client work with you and what do they get from your services and why are they staying with you? And that uniqueness you can't make it up, so we do a lot of those client interviews to make sure that the voice of the reseller matches what they think they are. And we often even interview clients that they've lost, and it does give us lots of insight as to what they can do differently when a client that didn't accept their RFP tells us all those reasons they didn't. I don't think many people do that, but for us, it's an essential part of discovery, and that just right sizes the messaging to the market, helps identify the buyer journeys that their clients have been on or experiences they've had with competitors, many of whom we work with as well. And, it's not a one size fits all. Some people love one partner and another people will hate them. You'd have seen that yourself. So, it's really like getting that strategic framework in place just anchors everything, and it doesn't need them to go outside of that, big or small. So it's the same.
And I would encourage everyone, all sizes of partners, even if you're just a single individual at this point in time, and your level of detail on your planning may differ as you grow over time, of course, but it's still relevant.
Hmm.
It's still relevant. We're a small but mighty organization ourselves, relatively new organization, and we do a lot of planning, we're a lot of documentation. Obviously, we teach and support tech partners in doing that for themselves. So it's incumbent upon us to do so, but it does make a significant difference. It really does. We
Mm,
track everything, and we look at every interaction, and steps, and engagements, and at a weekly basis. How we
mm,
what are those social kind of hits, and how many interactions we're having with vendors or target partners as well. So all those things matter. Let's talk a little bit more about the MSP space and diving
mm,
into marketing investment. And I just
mm,
want to kind of explore what's working and what's not. So when you look at marketing spend in that MSP space, and let's kind of focus in that mid-tier kind of space, if you like, not some of those larger partners you're working
mm.
with, what tends to work well and what tends to kind of fall flat and miss the mark?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's never going to work if you haven't got a plan, and if you haven't got a way of measuring anything, then you might as well go anywhere. I call it spray and pray, Brad. So quite often that's what happens. I'll think, oh, we should hire an agency, we need to do something, and invariably, without that right infrastructure and the roadmap for the company and the growth plans, it's usually I'll get comments like, yeah, well, we tried a marketing agency and it didn't work, and I'm like, well, how long for? And they're like, oh, 8 weeks. I'm like, yeah, well, you got your brand out there. So you've got to kind of think just what it is you're doing and how you do it. So, Petrina and I have been doing this for 37 years, and we have Jamie, who is our head of delivery from digital agency background. And we kind of really just act as the brake. The plans are there for a reason. The ways we're going to measure things are there for a reason. And even if we don't get marketing qualified leads to sales leads, we have got more marketing data and information to work from. There is very rarely a 12-month Marcoms plan in play. And with you think of all of the vendors that they make money from, one of the key things we do is we plot that whole 12 months. And I think, it's not very often you get the time to do that. But with that, we then have the ability to then roll in vendor MDF, which marketing development funds come to them, either in the financial cycle of the vendors that they work with, which are all at different times of the year and never aligned to a go to market ever. And so they end up just grabbing them and trying to do what they always do, which is pay for a customer event that doesn't grow the market or buy merchandise to give away. So, it isn't market development they're doing, it's rewarding existing clients. So, with all that in mind, we're really trying to just have small businesses know what a marketing funnel is, what awareness activities are, what interest activities are, what to look for, how to measure and look at their markers that you talk of, and move through to the desire purchase with offers, and then obviously convert them to a customer advocate talking about it. So and pretty much with every engagement, we run them through a 3-year marketing degree and give
Wow.
them some, very simple things, how to have smart goals, how to plan for a quarter around planning, orchestration, execution, and measurement, and rethink it. And it's really why we're seeing such a growth in our marketing as a service offering, because usually if they're big enough, and it's not till they're like 30 or 40 people that they might hire a marketing manager, and yet we can give them and bring them a team of marketing ninjas for half the price of a full-time head, as your advisory services also are pivotal, accurate, and reflecting on them what they need to hear in a way that they trust. So, it is something that we know is that very few companies have marketing automation systems. They're not using integrated CRM. They're not doing lead tracking. They're not doing workflow diagrams around marketing. And whether it's an enterprise or a small partner, we just go in once a month, reset their expectations, and then look at what we're going to do for the next month and just hold the course. And I think with busy salespeople, technologists, that's a big skill and a valued
Mm.
skill we bring.
It reminds me, Warwick, I spoken to a few partners recently who had vendor investment or disty investment to do a campaign.
Mm,
They they got some leads from those campaigns, and the several partners all said to me, the campaign didn't work, Brad. The leads never closed. And I said, "Oh, what did you do once you got the leads?" And said, "We did nothing." There was no mechanism, there was no nurture, there was no way to bring that customer on a structured buyer's journey to be able to, close that deal. So it's just a common misconception I see. What kind of other misconceptions do you often see MSPs making around branding and marketing?
Yeah, well, I think it's their lack of experience. They've either been in a company where it was done by others, or when they've tried to think of it themselves, they think having an event is good marketing. We kind of have to clear that up. So, brand marketing or spray and pray, anything to do with your brand story should be the story of the company. The other type of marketing is event marketing, which we will never get away from. That is of appeal to most tech companies, as far as I'm aware. There's performance marketing, which you buy. So that's LinkedIn ads, paid search, words, anything, Google Words. And then there's account-based marketing, which is marketing to the clients you've got with things that you know they need because they're on a technology journey, and with the right information, you'll know exactly what gaps each client has got with the technologies that they should have. So spelling out the plan to those 4 different places helps them actually realize the difference, that brand marketing is not about winning a client. It's about sharing your story and getting that word of mouth out there. Events are where you can bring prospects in to see that you're capable at it. Performance marketing is basically fishing, and hopefully the messaging works well for that. And account-based marketing should be very specific. So we usually start with the account-based marketing because every client we get starts with a review of their clients, the types, what verticals they're in, and looking at what technology they've got and mapping that to the processes and sales outbound that they have to go through. So probably getting that confidence in the salespeople, that alignment with the marketing go-to-market strategy, and quarterly based approach and agile sprints, which sounds like a big word, but it isn't, helps them just all stay focused on everywhere there's an opportunity, at the barbecue, at the school kids ground, at the sports game on a weekend. If we give them the right language, they can speak it. And generally people will always say, actually, I don't get that from my MSP, so I think I'd like to talk. You may know Jay McBean from Omdia. They're basically global. He said that there's 10% growth expected worldwide for all MSPs around the world, so that's encouraging. But he also said that in their research, 75% of wins that an MSP gets is from another MSP. And that means that the brand story or their lack of delivery or lack of engagement, forgetting about the 80-20 rule and rewarding their loyal customers. They're off on a journey all the time to find net new instead of rewarding the loyalty they've got. So lots of things in that to unpick.
The outside of some of those growth metrics, a lot of partners struggle with profitability. There's some very highly profitable partners, but a lot of partners struggle with profitability and don't even do simple things like consistent price rises for their customers, and that impacts profitability over time. You talked about kind of account-based marketing, talking to your existing customers. If I'm at an MSP and I'm struggling to make a buck and keep my head above the water, I've got limited budget, I want to try to get some return. Is that where I start back into my accounts and do account-based marketing? And if so, what does that journey look like?
Yeah, I think if you've been counselling, but consulting with clients, you'll find that quite a lot of them have a large portion of their client base on break fix agreements. So they basically just call up when they need help.
Yep.
There's a lot of them. They're really demanding. They're not profitable, and really they're the managed accounts on monthly contracts, regardless of how demanding they are. They're more profitable because you can do more or less and still get paid the same. So with the small ones we work with, we always recommend a deep dive into the customer list. How much, who are the top 80-20 and what are the characteristics of those low ones, and recommend they just drop them and move on and reduce those inbound calls. We are seeing, obviously, agents coming into play now. We're ticketing with ConnectWise and Halo, and the PSA was the way they did it. That isn't really very engaging, and it's not really very responsive. So, fast moving MSPs are looking to develop those agents to try and reduce the touch points with clients, but obviously stay close to the ones that need it with a personal touch.
That's again one of the things that makes you a little bit unique is I hate to put you in this bucket, but the outsider, a basic view is that you're a marketing organization, but you're not. You're very different because you're talking company strategy as
Mm,
well as kind of that go to market. What's
yeah.
normally your advice then around price rising? If you are talking about strategy to these partners, what do some of the better partners do in terms of managing price rises, and how do they communicate that to their customers?
I mean, to be blunt, they should just do it. I mean, everybody else is, almost every supplier I have, personally, professionally, has been putting up prices lately. And if
Yep.
they're not doing that, have you seen the size of a toffee pop lately or a Snickers bar? They're just shrinking the bloody product. So there's two ways that they can do, shrink the service delivery or increase the price. Do it bluntly. Their regular top 10 managed clients would be advised of those changes and why. The others will just see the price changes and accept that it's how the world works. So, you don't overcook those things and you don't overthink them. And if clients complain, then you've got another opportunity to sell them up to what the value is that you're providing. That's part of really what we do with this. Is like, the problem with MSPs is that their clients never see them if they do a good job, and then they think they're not getting value. So, we really do work hard to produce engagement reports, make sure the clients get newsletters, make sure they're being invited to events, make sure they have a quarterly QBR with the reseller account manager, even when they don't want to, because there's always new, MFA, Microsoft email migrations. There's lots of baseline services that they all need to do. So, driving that engagement will definitely help their retention, regardless of small price rises as they come up, which are often driven by the vendor anyway. Microsoft
Yeah.
does that all the time.
Yeah. And we're strong advocates for really breaking that lack of proactive engagement that we see broadly across the channel,
Mm,
and start with your not to lose customers.
yeah.
The other piece of advice, or best practice I've seen, is sometimes I see partners think, oh, I want to talk to my customer about a price rise, and then they go book this big meeting and have a big discussion. I wouldn't do that. I would just simply put on the invoice, hey, your price is going up 5% next month or 60
Mm,
days or whatever it is. Just like it happens with your electricity, just like it happens with every other bloody supplier we have, whether it's in our personal lives or in our professional lives, right? You
mm,
don't need to make a big deal out of it. You need to communicate it, and you need to do it consistently
you
to
do.
ensure that
Yeah.
you get you're remaining profitable.
Well, if you think of what I just said before, that 75% of wins are from other MSPs, there's some signs there of what that other partner isn't doing. So the more that they can talk marketing wise in that brand world, being at events, being seen at industry events, other people start to realize that they are better than the other partner that they're trying to get the business off. But, we live in a world where the Australian and New Zealand MSPs think a growth strategy is to buy another company. And when we were at Edge last year, I remember James talking about just, how much merging and acquisitions going on there are. And that then uproots the brand completely. They've got to tell a different story. We work a lot on that, where they've bought another company. Some just weave it straight into the parent company, and others then want to keep that brand. And so, this is a very fluid kind of approach, whereas we're kind of the opinion that you set a growth strategy that ideally would be where you want to get to. So I'll always ask a partner, a client, what is your growth plan? What do you want to be? Where do you want to be in like 1, 3, and 5 years? And they're like, oh, we want to be 5 million. And then I will say, okay, well, based on your average deal size of 25K, we're going to get 50 new sales. So let's work backwards. What do we need to do to get to that 50? One by one, right from pipeline right through to closing them, because quite often they take 12 to 18 months. What starts as a conversation. It's not easy to unpick what an MSP does for a client. As like they've got a lot of migration and work to do and moving data and all those kinds of things. So, bad partners are looking after some great clients that would move if only they were given a reason to by another one. That makes sense.
It does, and when to think about the pricing, one of the things I've observed a lot is a lot of partners within the industry will go to tech events. It might be Evolve, it might be Edge. We'll be back at
Mm,
Edge this year. It might be Pipeline. It might be a vendor event. And then they all get really excited to go for the tea and coffee break, and they network other partners, and they start to check and understand how others are pricing in the market, and often aligned to that.
mm,
And so that's one of the ways the partners I see that they benchmark. But keep
mm,
in mind, majority of partners struggle to be profitable. So if you're benchmarking to the greater mass, it's probably a destination you don't want to go, a path you don't want to go down. So we believe there's about a 30% price variance in market from the cheapest to the most expensive. And I would really encourage MSPs to think about where they are on that spectrum, and are they a premium product or not? And be comfortable in losing that bottom 10% of your customers, right, as you go through that journey.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that emotional connection, Brad. For a lot of them, they've had them for years. They're not great clients, but they sort of become friends along the way, and they don't really want to do it. But if you want to be profitable, you've got to be a bit tough now and then. But also, one of the other big things we do here at Fabric is to try and build these partnerships into something more solid. In New Zealand, there's only 3 Microsoft distributors, and in Australia, there's 5, I think. The work that you get from them has to help your business. So, and because we work with the distributors on behalf of the vendors, there's a lot more money flowing to the distributor to help good partners. So we put in a lot of plans to distributors for partners. We work with bigger ones on MDF utilization. Like, I had a meeting with a IBM partner just before Christmas, and they said, we want them to spend their MDF. And I'm like, well, how much do they have? And he said $200,000. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, no, they haven't even put a plan in. And I'm like, well, what the hell? So there are some simple things to do, like don't wait, don't leave $1 of MDF on the table, but also ask your distributor to help you do what they're supposed to do, which is help you grow. So, in Australia, we just did some interviews for a distributor over there, and one of their clients said, yep, because of the services and the people that they've got, we've grown our Microsoft practice 50% in the last 12 months. I'm like, that's gold, so we've already been working with that. So ask your better suppliers how you can partner more, how they can help you grow your business, stay loyal to them and don't jump around, and work together on plans that will, make you're both successful. And I think with the shift in distribution support coming for Microsoft, it's not always just them. All the distribution models change all the time, is to make sure you are looked at as a proactive MSP that has a database that can do marketing and to ask for the money. And I think with us backing them and helping them, they're soon on their way to do it themselves. And, that's what we all want. I mean, you want it, we want it. We just want them to be successful.
Yeah. So just a couple of data points on that marketing investment. For those of you not aware, my role that I used to play at Microsoft was responsible for the channel business, the CSP business across Australia and New Zealand. And so I know the numbers intimately, and probably can't share them in a fine detail and probably get arrested. But a couple of things I will share is often the marketing managers, particularly at the end of quarters, struggle to spend the investment that they get. Again, at end of quarters, often these marketing managers inside the vendors can get dumped a whole bunch of capital, a whole bunch of a cash that they need to spend quickly. And so always making sure those marketing managers that exist in your target vendors, work with partners like yourself, Warwick, who've got some of those relationships, and always have a half-baked plan ready to go. Because sometimes you've got to be agile and move quick to secure those funds. The other piece, and this is around co-op or investment utilization. Let's focus on co-op for a moment. So if you're a CSP partner, and particularly if you've got a solution designation, you're earning co-op dollars. That total volume of co-op dollars is, well and truly over $10 million in ANZ annually in the channel. 50% last time when I was in that role, 50% was unutilized, unspent. And so, most partners have got a significant amount of investment there waiting for them if they can get support in helping navigating Partner Center, because it's a pain in the butt, and utilize that investment. You've got 45 days at the end of each calendar half to be able to spend that investment, and you've got to pre-register for it as well. So there's a lot of great consultants in our community, including you guys, who can really help partners navigate that and capitalize on the investment. So let's talk a little bit. Talk a little bit about Fabric Partners. We're going to get into kind of how you can help partners in a moment. But before we do that, the start of your third year, I think you said, just come to the end of your second year. For those listening to today's call, and I know myself and you guys, starting a new business is really tough. Particularly if you want to be differentiated in the market. What are some of the big lessons that you guys have learnt whilst building Fabric Partners over the past few years?
Yeah, I mean, well, Katrina and I have both had successful exits. So as well as our 20 years in corporate life, I started a distribution business, as I mentioned, and she started her own loyalty and rewards company in Australia when she was having their children. So she had that company for 14 years, I think. So between us, we've both had the experience inside a vendor, Microsoft, HP, Computer Associates, and Corral, as well as having had successful exits. And we know it's just as hard to exit as it is to get started at times. So we knew the risks and rewards. And when we both found ourselves in the same place, I mean, I'm mid 60s now, so I just so love technology, and we're in this huge wave of data and AI that, when she said, should we do something? I was like, yeah, let's do it. We haven't had to put as much money in as some people have, because what we do, we could get cracking selling it straight away. So that worked really well. We've had senior marketing product roles, marketing across Australia. Between the two of us, it will be quite a shock to your listeners, Brad, but we've probably utilized or spent over 250 million US dollars in our 30-year careers. And one quarter at HP when I was there, I had $8 million, and that was just the direct market, not the channel market. So we're kind of used to the problems. And so for us, we really knew that we'd been trained in our own businesses. We'd had global training at the corporate level of fighting with Harvard graduates in America, telling us what our New Zealand target would be and giving them all the geopolitical and social reasons why they were not correct. Used to that level of negotiation. We have had and built from all this, with all the learnings we've made, methodologies, templates, workflow diagrams, process maps, plan on a page setups, go-to-market strategy that can all fit on one page in a way that people can understand it. And I think those things really are what we wanted to utilize. And for me, I just did not want to retire and go fishing when I've got all this great IP to help the country. So we're both really motivated by helping, individual companies grow. But in the end, getting that Microsoft tagline coming to life, like how can we help our clients, help their clients achieve and do more? And at the moment, it's become so fast and so frequent that I don't even now know what my software does anymore. It's changing every day. Whereas years ago, we would have 3 years in between releases and you'd have time to get used to features. And now there's just so much coming at people that they can't tell the noise, from all the noise. So we really try and take that pain away as Fabric. We know everybody. We know how the vendors are working. We're usually a step ahead. We, like you, at year 2, have had to pivot our story a little bit to be more around tech vendor support and brand, because we didn't really win brand stories. It had to sort of come in at a later date when there was often money that was being dropped or a different reason to help educate them to what the brand anchoring would do for their growth. So, that's something that we've really enjoyed. We've had trouble with our hires. People are the biggest challenge for any company, and getting those hires right and fitting as a team has been something that we've had to pivot on. But, we have got to the end of year 2, and in the end, between us and Jamie, we've got 9,000 incredibly well-crafted, well-selected LinkedIn connections with scions of industry across tech and across all kinds of areas of business that we know will help us when it comes to turning all of this knowledge into something. We really haven't stopped learning, and I think that's something that happens a lot. We've, working with ISVs is probably one of my favorite things, because one of my previous clients was a Microsoft recommendation, and the owner came into the company and I was just about ready to leave, and he said, well, what does it cost to do the stuff that you do? And I'm like, oh, well, it's 20 grand to get started. And I was just ready to kind of finish. And he said, yeah, okay, I'm into that. And, he was just one of those people that you connect with straight away. He knew he needed to improve his collateral, he thought. And we went right back to scratch, built the brand, built the story, built the content. And They are a digital twinning company in New Zealand, started here with a product called Volt, and they've now just won the digital twinning of the Saudi Arabia NEOM megacity, opened the UK office, hired an executive from Microsoft, and, second best in the world. And I think what motivates me mostly is that New Zealand, especially, is a hotbed of incredible ISVs like Rocket Lab, from nowhere to sort of probably third in line to get satellites into space behind Jeff Bezos and Starlink. So that's the energy that we have in the country, and I know that it's there in Australia too. And that is something that I really, really want to do as we look at helping companies. Another question that comes up a lot is, what software are you using? Because clearly there's hundreds of AI products coming through, and I caution people around that a lot. You do need to assess them, you do need to utilize them, and even for MSPs, in some ways recommend certain things like the software that you're using to do our call today that will speed up the route to market for the content. That's all brilliant stuff. But in terms of, using Miro boards for group discussions, Group Map for running remote workshops where we have to try and get teams working together remotely, they're all part of that process. And as we see these tech trends come and go, our job is just to activate it. Whether it's going to win or not, that's not for us to say. But it is to try and make sure that experience does develop and grow people and develops our countries. So, we seek keynote speaking roles like this one. We enter every award event awards we can get into and help clients ready themselves for those. That I've just stepped down from the ANZ exec of GTIA, and there's so much more momentum around that organisation, SMBIT, through the media, through Foundry and tech partners. These are connections, organisations, communities, I guess, that we should draw on. The biggest learning I've ever had probably, though, is the old saying of hitch your wagon to a star. And so that's what Petrina and I have really decided with Fabric. We have to be close to Microsoft, to HPE, HP, Lenovo, Dell, Google, AWS, Fortinet, and increasingly Snowflake, Databricks for data, and in terms of the PSAs, ConnectWise and Halo, which, is a incredible new shift in terms of PSA management. So, the tools are super important in the way they select them, but also the way they recommend them. So just one other thing that I also recommend is, it's not really a secret, is just watching where people go. Like, in the last few months, there's been, I think, 30,000 people laid off from, Microsoft, from HP, AWS have just announced another 16 today. So, Lindsay Zwart from Microsoft New Zealand went to Seattle and is now APAC lead for Pax8. Sarah Bowden, APAC sales for Microsoft. Yeah. She's gone to Pax8. We've got Vicky Batka going from Cisco and Trellix to be Chief Partner Officer at Microsoft. And I'm like, these things are all happening for a reason, but if you keep close to these people, you'll get all the, the insights and intel you need. And ideally offer the mentoring. We're in a world where all over the place, our MSPs are suffering from lack of guidance. So, every chance I get, I'm, super proud of the work you're doing with James. I'm super excited to see just how valuable those services that you have are going to be for the channels that need them. I recommend everybody puts their hand up for the $200 a month starting point with you guys and just figure out what they need to do with their business first, and the rest will follow naturally.
Oh, thank you, mate. Thank you for the little shout out. And we aim to keep prices low and value high. Yep. I am a massive rocketry fan. So mentioning Rocket Lab, and I know the company well, I'll follow all their launches and content online. It's an amazing New Zealand success story. Now got both the operation in New Zealand and I think out of California, they've got a factory there too, but doing launches in multiple locations. And probably the launch site in New Zealand is probably the most beautiful rocket launch site in the entire world. It's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. And they're going to be big movers in the small to medium lift space. As private organizations continue to grow in that space. So very exciting. Good job, New Zealand. Mate, before we wrap up, one of the things that you guys have done over the last year, I think, is you've trademarked your fabric the impact loop. Is it called the marketing
Mm,
impact loop? Tell us
yep.
more about what that is and how that represents the brand and
Mm.
the work that you do.
Yeah, I'll put it in the comments or you can share it with people. I mean, it's really a methodology that everything needs to stem from a business insights and goals. And obviously, if you can get the brand right and then get into the marketing campaigning side with that structure in place, you just get into this really lovely infinite loop of performance that is easy to track. Some of it's marketing insights, some of it's getting the brand story ready, some of it's the building and the assets, and then obviously working out what you're going to spend and why. I mean, there's all different reasons in that. So, yeah, it's built from 37 years of impact, I suppose. And knowing we need to protect our assets, I'd recommend that your listeners do the same. The methodologies are unique. The other thing we've done is what we call our impact interwoven weave, which is the, start with purpose, build a story, develop campaigns, and then activate your channel, because invariably most of the work we're doing is trying to not have marketing stop and it not translate into an engagement with a salesperson. So, making sure that tight interaction is where we bring all those threads together to make that really tight story, is that's what it was about. So yeah, we've got these things trademarked. I mean, I don't think anyone would ever try and steal them. In fact, we're so open about using them in our methodologies that they might as well be in the public domain. But visually, they're a fabric, unique go-to-market that is resonating really well. And, I just got another lead yesterday and I'm like, where it's coming from, there's money. There's a lot of money flowing down. And, in my last year at Microsoft, 60% of the world global product marketing assigned budget did not get utilized. So, yes, be ready at the end of a quarter for money that might come late, but be ready to apply for it early, because 2 months
Yep.
before it's issued, those distributors and those vendors are thinking, now, which partner's doing well for us that we could give them a little bit of a nudge? So, you want to be one of those ones in a nudge position. So I tell you what, with Fabric behind them and Channel Guru, they're sweet. They should just all get on board, I reckon.
Definitely. And look, you see, I feel a bugbear while you mention that. If you're a partner, be brave. If you've got a partner, you've got a Disney coming to you, particularly Disney's do this a lot, and they want to take you on a junket, right? Because you're selling lots of stuff. Say no and ask, put that money into marketing investment. Go build your business. That's that you go in on that event, you go into that tennis, you go into that car race in absence of investment inside your own organization. So be brave and really challenge them to divert those investments in ways that help you meaningfully. Warwick, it's been a wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of new challenger vendors. I think we get a lot of time and mind share to those big ones. I've listed them off just in the previous question, but there is a lot. There's 67,000 AI startups in America. I mean, they are solving problems in every sphere of life around the globe. And some of them are ready to build, they're building new product solutions through different partnerships and alliances. And obviously there's new innovative breakthrough products that would challenge the status quo. So for us in this time zone, New Zealand and Australia are leading in certain ways to keep an eye on those emerging products and get them into your business to see if they can help their clients do better. Because, we're at the beginning of the biggest change we've ever seen in the history of time. And it's only a few years away that, this change is going to just impact everybody. So, try and be open, be perceptive, research, read, and obviously try and apply it to the go-to-markets that you're doing. If they need help, we're here to do that. The marketing as a service is a monthly fee, and we do whatever we need to do to make it work. And same with your subscription service. There's a lot of fatigue around subscriptions at the moment in personal and professional life and not getting value from them. So most of our bigger clients, Brad, are culling, vendors. I know, Datacom's just gone down from like 800 partners to a managed 40 with GMs in each.
Wow.
So, structurally there's shifts happening around where the loyalty is and where the innovation is coming. So, be brave, as you said, and keep your eyes out. Look for those partnerships, look for those vendors, and go on the journey. And we're here to help them.
That's awesome, mate. Well, you've always been such a massive contributor to the channel at large, to the community at large, often giving up a lot of your free time to support others. So thank you, mate. We love our partnership and look forward to the next conversation.
We absolutely will. Thanks so much for having me, Brad. See you soon.
Cheers, mate.
Bye now.